Well, 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 we are back. We are back and better than ever, I hope. Okay, welcome. Welcome to the G Spot. I'm your host, Dr. G. Alfred Palmer, and it is a privilege and an honor to have you once again to take time out of your busy schedule. I'm sure there was other things that you could found yourself doing and to spend this time with me. Thank you. I am grateful. I don't take it lightly. I understand the value of the commodity of time. It is something that we don't get back. It is very important how we spend it. So I'm thankful that you've chosen to spend it with me. Just a little bit about me. I had some television experience in Christian television. I did come out of the Christian background. I've had several backgrounds, and coming back to this platform was a little. I was a little nervous about it, but I'm starting to get my feet back under me and understand that I can do this. And I've done it. For some time. So tonight, I want to talk about last night real briefly. Talk about masculinity and the maximized masculinity, and how we are experiencing right now a crisis in maximized masculinity, and how masculinity is produced in this realm, in this dimension called Earth. Okay, so I hope that you will go to that particular broadcast, YouTube broadcast in my channel, and I'm hoping that this will be as well beneficial to you, because I'm gonna step on some sacred cows. I do that quite frequently. I think that's my MO. I think that's the reason that I believe the Creator gave me the mandate that I have. And I'm not trying to be troublesome or to be a naysayer, but we have to understand that in dealing with the Creator feels all things at all times. We never totally get to the place where we know everything, but we can elevate to new levels, new heights. We can expand and extend further. And so that's important to be able to do that. So I'm going to be doing that, extending and elevating and expanding. And to do that, it calls for stepping on or kicking over some sacred cows. I'm not, and so this broadcast is for those that have an ear to hear. So if you have an ear to hear, hear. If that's not you, then this is not for you. And it's okay. Not everything is for us, because not always have we arrived to a place where we're ready to hear or receive a certain thing. Some people are, some people aren't. And when we do get to that place, God willing, we'll be ready to receive when it's our time. I want to talk about. I try to be sensitive, and I hear a lot going on, and one of the things that is now being pressed upon is the idea, especially by males, it's important that you understand that there's a difference between a boy, a male, and a man. There's distinct differences, and because they're distinct differences, we need to be able to understand and know how those differences apply. I'm going to be talking about once I get a green light, I'm going to return back to talking about the stages of development, and I think that that's critical to look at, because it really gives us a look at how we develop mentally, cognitively, intellectually, and physically, and how those all play a part in how we go about living our lives and how we see the world. And so it becomes critically important that we understand that much of the things that we think, we believe, and we operate from is because of our developmental stage. And so it's important not only for us to understand where we are as from a developmental standpoint, but it's also is beneficial for those of the opposite sex to understand where you are, so that we can stop making bad decisions relative to relationships. And that's what's been a problem. We've been making bad decisions around who we choose to enter into and to become important in our lives. So before we get back to that, I want to address something that I find that's continually being in the media, and I've heard some other content creators talk about this whole notion of kings and queens. One of my mentors, who's now no longer with us, was a big proponent of what we called the kingdom ideology, and as a speaker and a teacher, he was phenomenal. And I'm not going to mention his name, but some of you who follow me know who that is. So, one of the things I've learned is that in order for us to elevate, to expand, and extend, we have to be willing to take what we've learned, from whom we've learned, and who we set under in tutelage to. And we have to learn that we need to stand on their shoulders. And once we stand on their shoulders, what we need to do is to begin to peer out at the landscape and to begin to gain a different perspective, a more elevated perspective of what's out on the horizon, and to begin to bring those things to the awareness of people. My mentor allowed me to take what he has laid the groundwork for, and allowed me to stand, I believe, to stand on his shoulders. I don't believe I'm the only one, but I believe that I am, based on the things that I've learned from him. It's not so much as a personal thing as it is, even though I did have some personal dealings, I didn't, it's not about the personal, it's about the prophetic. And so for me, it was one of those things that right now I believe that I'm standing on the shoulders of those that have gone before me to say the things that I'm going to say that may in turn kick over some sacred cows that people have held in their barn, if you would. And so I want to talk about kings specifically, because I'm hearing people, good morning, kings and queens. We are kings and queens. I'm a king. She's a queen. And I want to bring some clarity and understanding from the biblical perspective about kings and queens. Specifically in this session, I want to talk about kings. I want to talk to the males and the men, because this mentality of kings has affected our self-image and our self-esteem, and how we see the world, and how we operate and function in the world as well. And I think that becomes paramount in understanding that we need to have a clear understanding of what kings are. And the truth of the matter, if we are or not kings. So again, I always start by letting people know that everyone has a foundation. The key is to where is your foundation rooted? What is it that you, where do you hang your hat as far as your philosophical, theological, sociological, psychological, wherever your perspectives are, where do you hang your hat? Where do you get your information? For me, philosophy, psychology, theology, and spirituality are very key and paramount to me. But the most important to me is that of the biblical narrative. Now, I know some people have problems with it. I have issues with it too. But at the same token, I understand how it is to benefit us. And because how it's supposed to benefit us, it's intended to benefit us in that it's a manual for living. It is not a religious book. We have taken it and used it as a religious book. And as a result of it, some people have complied, some have not. Some have a perspective and a interpretation that is very detrimental to the overall scheme of humanity, and it can be used to dominate people, even though it was not intended. But it's like any other book that has come out. Many people misuse them. They abuse them. Anything that is used independent of its individual purpose, abuse is inevitable. It's not abnormal use is inevitable. It is nothing that can thwart or stop that abuse or that abnormal use. But if we have a foundation that we can solidify ourselves on, that gives us great confidence. And I have great confidence in the biblical narrative, even though there are things that I know that I have issues with. But I've learned how to navigate, to study, to show myself approved. I believe that's, I don't just read. The biblical narrative doesn't say read to show yourself approved, but study to show yourself approved. Study to show yourself approved. Study to show you. And many don't. They take a literal English written text in their individual Bible, not knowing that there are over 450 translations of the Bible. So you have to be careful in what you're reading. And what you have to do is to begin to go back and to identify those words in the Hebrew, Greek, Latin, Aramaic, and those and look at some of the, and so that takes study. It doesn't take just reading a text and then and swallowing that and saying that is what it means, because it's not true. It's not true. If you study, you'll see that the English language is one of the most mistake-ridden languages and difficult languages and mud languages that has ever existed. It's hard to learn. The rules for the English language are so chaotic that many people have problems learning it. So when we start looking at the biblical text from a translation, an English translation, again, there's 450 of them. There can be presented some problems, and so in understanding that, I am not one. I've gone to seminary. I've gone to Bible college. I've spent decades in studying the biblical narrative. It's not something that I've just picked up. It's a part of my life, a very critical part of my life. So, I'm not a Bible scholar. I don't believe. I'm just someone that loves to read, study, and to expound. Some would call that a scholar, but I'm just me. And what I do is I enjoy the biblical narrative and applying it in my life. So here we go. We want to talk about this notion of being a king. And the reason is because, why is that important? The reason why it's important is because with the idea of a king comes a certain self-image, comes a identity, and a self-esteem that is very critical in how it's projected to the world and how we live our lives in the world. So the idea of a king is very critical in rightly understanding and dividing exactly what it is, not from a religious standpoint, but from a very sociological, geological perspective. And so I want to examine kings. Now what I do is, because I'm a proponent of the biblical narrative, I always go back and use that as my foundation. And so you're going to hear me go back to that, but I'm going to come and bring it to this day and time as well. But I think if you're going to understand where we are, we got to understand our history, our past as well. So in understanding our past, what we do is we begin to understand the origin of a thing, the beginning of a thing, the impetus of a thing. So that becomes critical in understanding how we accept things now, or how we should accept things now, because over time, generation, space, energy, those are very important words. We're going to get in those. The meaning of words change culturally, and what we have, and so the true meaning of a word gets lost. This happens a lot in English because, English is a mutt language. It is a mutt language. So when you read the biblical narrative from the English Bibles, one of those 450 translations, believe me, you're just skimming the surface. You're just skimming the surface. So you have to really examine. For those who contend that the biblical narrative doesn't have any real legitimacy, have never studied it, because the biblical narrative could never be this precise, this interwoven, this interconnected, without some type of psychological, mental, spiritual connection. It's not possible. But people who would contend that it's not have never studied it. They never studied it, because in order for you to gain the understanding, you have to study and not read. Some people come with the idea that it is not this, that, and the other. Fine. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people, the millions that believe in the biblical narrative. That's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to my people. Okay, so I want to talk about kings. Now, in line with kings, we need to understand, when in the biblical narrative, the times, seasons that kings ruled, we've got to understand what was the landscape. Now, and when we look at the biblical times, monarchs or monarchies were prevalent, namely kings and kingships. Now, there were some minor queenships, if you would, but not many. They were basically kingships or kingdoms. A kingdom had a king as a ruler, as a monarch, or a queen as a monarch. Now, it's important that we understand that in those days, kings and queens varied in their legacy, their disposition, their mental status, and the way that they function. Some were good, some were bad. Okay. Now, as a person who studies the biblical narrative, understanding that a king in Israel, well, in the biblical narrative, we got to understand that there was a nation called Israel, and Israel had kings. They had a number of kings. In fact, Israel had a total of 20 kings. 20 kings. Not all of them were good. Not all of them were bad. Out of the 20, 5 were good. So that means 1 out of 4 was a good king. The rest of them were not good kings. And here's the thing that becomes very, very critical. And it is the very impetus. It is the very foundation which I hang my hat. It's the hook that I hang my hat on. And that is this. The nation of Israel, in the book of, I think it's 1 Samuel 8, wanted to have a king. They wanted to have a king. Why? Because all the other nations have kings. So many of us are following the lead of other people. You don't do, you know, I see people on the social media, they're following the after certain people or talking about certain people just to get follows, to get subscriptions and things of that nature. And they really give no value. They really give no value to this platform. My aim is to give value. And so when we start talking about kings, what I wanted you to understand is the idea of kings is not new. It's not new. It is something that comes from the past. And if we understand the past, we can better understand, comprehend, and apply those ideas that people have here. Because culturally, we lost it. We have really lost the understanding and comprehending of what a king is. So one of the things that I the main thing I hang my hat on is not only that Israel had, 15 kings and only 5 were good, but the thing is this: the Creator never wanted Israel to have a king. He never wanted them to have a king. Why? Because the Creator knew what a king would do. If we want to be a king, then we are opposed to God. We are opposed to the Creator. If you think that you're a king, and if you receive someone calling you king, I ignore it when I'm called a king because I know I'm not a king. Because a king, K-I-N-G, a king is a kleptomaniac, is insecure, is neurotic, and greedy. And I'm none of those. I'm none of those. A king can help themselves but to be kleptomatic. They're kleptomatic. They can't help but to be insecure. They're neurotic. And they're extremely greedy. I am none of those things, and you aren't either. That is my declaration over you. You're none of those things. You're none of those things. And I've seen positive characteristics of kings. I have. I've seen them listed in many different areas because I've researched it. But I have to come back to the biblical narrative because that is my foundation that says that 1 out of 4 kings of Israel were not good kings. And the Creator told the nation of Israel he did not want them to have a king. But because other nations had a king, the nation of Israel wanted a king. So the prophet of the Lord told the people what a king would do to you. Now I'm gonna tell you what a king will do to you. Now, and someone will say, well, I'm not going to be that kind of guy. I'm going to be different. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be more sensitive. Well, I'm sure that of these 20 kings, the majority of them thought the same thing. But see, the thing about position is it doesn't make you, it reveals who you are. It reveals who you are. And so many of these kings who thought that they would be good kings didn't realize that they were going to be shown who they really are. Okay. So the nation of Israel still demanded that they have a king. And so the creator through the prophet Samuel said to them this: here is what your king going to do to you. Now listen, this is what kings do. This is what kings do. Again, there were good ones, not many. There were good ones, but not many. So if we were going to do it on a bell curve, we're going to say that 95% of them are in the first 2 standard deviations. The rest are to the extremes, rare, almost non-existent. But for some reason, we think that we're going to be that rare instance, that rare case. No. We're average. And it's nothing wrong with being average. But the truth of the matter is that we as a people, 95% of us are average. And so we're the kings. So are kings. And so here we go. Here we're going to talk about this kleptomaniac, this insecure, neurotic, greedy person. What does he do? Well, the creator said, first of all, the first thing that this king is going to do, the king is going to take your sons. He's going to take them. See, he's going to take your sons and appoint them to serve him. See, this is one thing that kings want. Kings want people to serve them. They want to be served and not serve. I'll say it again. Kings want to be served and not to serve. When in all actuality, the reason that you were born and the reason that you're here is to serve. The greatest of the kingdom is they that serve. Serve. We're here for service. And if you don't serve and you're looking to be served, what you're doing is you're not fulfilling purpose. So then you really, really are not doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing, which in fact will shorten your life. Yep. Purpose lengthens your life. Purpose lengthens your life. So the first thing that a king will do is take your sons and appoint them to serve him. See, because we want, for the most part, we want to be the big cheese, the big kahuna, right? We want to be the boss with the hot sauce. We want to be the diva, right? We want to be the diva. We want to be that gangster. We want to be that one that's telling everybody what to do. We want to be that queen, right? That diva. We want to be all those things. But in all actuality, we're none of those things. We're none of those things. And if you continually want and long after those things, you will cut your life. You will cut your life short. Okay. So the king first will take your sons and appoint them to serve him. The next thing the king will do is build an army. Why? To solidify and to protect his reign, to protect his position, to protect his business, to protect. So what they'll do is they'll put people around them, your sons, and build them an army of followers. They want people to follow them. The next thing that a king will do, a king will not only take your sons, form an army or form a following, but he'll rank them. He will rank them. Why? The reason why he ranks them is to enforce loyalty and competition for position. You're so busy warring amongst yourself, you don't even take in consideration that the king has set this thing up to keep you, because if you really were to rise up against the king, there's nothing that a king can do, because a king owns nothing. Really, a king owns nothing. But we want to be a king or a boss. You don't own it. You don't. A king, what a king does, a king lives by dictate, treaties, covenants, which is nothing more than an agreement that's written on paper that can be broken at any time. So the idea of a king owning is a false one. A king does not own. Oh, this is the king's land. No, it's not. The king has no land. And the only reason that a king is able to sustain that premise that they own it is through violence and through force, through treaty. But they don't really own it. So here we have someone giving you delusions of grandeur that they are this, that, and the other. A king is delusional. Kings have mental health issues. They do. Look at the history. They have mental health issues. And so we've got to understand that the king, what he's going to do is not serve, but he's going to garner your children to serve. Now, I just talked about your sons. This is what the king will do to your sons. Well, what about your daughters? What about your daughters? The king will do this to your daughters. The king will take your daughters, and the biblical narrative says that they will become workers in factories, cooks and bakers, producing those things to feed the king and the army, to sustain them so that the king can maintain his rule over people. But we want to rule. So we invoke things like the art of war, right? You know, we want to invoke those kinds of ideologies. And as a result of it, what we want to do is we want to be the big bad. But if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. You will die by the sword. So the king takes the daughters and makes them laborers, cooks, bakers, prostitutes, to serve the king and the army, to sustain the army so that the army can guard and protect the rulership of the king. And the king gives a few people rank, position within the organization, so that everybody's looking at this person. I want that position. I want that position. And you're never looking at the fact that you are king. I'm sorry, that you're not a king, but that you have your own area of expertise that you could be moving into, but you're not doing it. You're building someone else's. But you're not a king. You're not a boss. You're not a gangster. You're not. But here's some other things that a king will do. A king will take your property. This is what belongs to you. I was looking at a documentary and recently, and it was about one of my favorite groups. And I'm gonna date myself here, but I'm a fan of Parliament Funkadelic. And what I saw in this documentary was how the leadership of the group took the property of the members of the group, the creative powers, the creative properties, I should say, of the other group members, and used it to line his own coffers, and left them with nothing, offering them drugs instead of money, not paying them for their creative genius. Listen, if you've never heard Parliament Funkadelic, you are missing a treat. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. Ha! Flashlight. Don't get me started. Anyway, so the king will take property and the production and of the other people for themselves and for those that are in position, so that those people look at those. See, he'll give a little bit to those that he's set up, so that those peons below not look at the king, but look at that person and say, I want that position, and have them defocus off of the king onto that person. It's very intentional. It's very intentional. So the king takes. The king takes. The king. The prophet told the people that the king is going to take 1/10 of your for taxes. That's a lot. 1/10. We call it a tithe now, right? In the religious sense, we call it a tithe. But here, it's not even a tithe. It's not. See, because the tithe went to the religious, or to the priests. Here, it tends to go into the king. The king also will take another thing that we said. The king will take your best assets, whatever that is, and we just spoke about it. Really, your creativity, your property, whatever assets you have, the king is going to take them. That's what kings do. And overall, what a king will do, a king will make you a servant to him. However, you were not born to be served. You were born to serve, not the king. You're not here to serve the king. You're here to serve what you have, which is your purpose. Your purpose is to be served to those that you come in contact, and those that the Creator put in your path. But a king will not do that. The king will not do that. The king, when heard that, when the three magi went to looking for baby Jesus, he happened to go into the land and was told by Herod, "Hey, let me know when you find him and where he is. I want to come worship him too." But the truth of the matter, the king wanted to secure his kingdom and was looking, because he was told that there was another king born. So he wanted to ensure that he got rid of the competition. And that's what kings do. Kings don't garner competition, they get rid of it. You are a competition to someone. They want to get rid of you. They want to take what's yours. And they will say that it's theirs. We see it so many times, different products that have been taken, even during slavery, things that were taken from people who came up with ideas and inventions, and it was taken. right? You know what I'm talking about. You're not a king. What are you then if you're not a king? You're more than a king. You're more than a king. You are made in the express image and the likeness of the creator. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, you're born in the shadow. A shadow of a thing is a shape of the thing, but not the real actual thing. So you are born in the image or the shadow of the creator. So you are of the God class, but you're not God. You're a shadow. See, somebody, I'm God. No, you're not. You are not God. You're God's. In other words, you belong to God, which makes you a part of that class, but you are not God. And people saying, "Oh, I'm a God." No, okay. If you're a God, manifest $1 million. Just $1 million. We don't even have to go that high. You're not even going to be able to $1 million if you are God. And let's say you are able to manifest $1 million. There's other aspects of life that you cannot, because you are not God. But you are in the image. We are in his image. We are in his shadow. We are in his likeness. Image, likeness. Two different things. In the Hebrew, those are two different words. So those are two different concepts. Image, shadow, form. But likeness is more substantive. More, you get it. My teeth are coming out. It's more substance there. Okay. And the whole idea is that you not only resemble him in shadow, but you are in the likeness, or you resemble him in thought. We can think God ideas. We can think God thoughts. Yes, we can, because purpose is a God thought. Purpose is an idea, a God idea. You are a God idea. You're not your parents' idea. You're not the romp in the hay between your mom and dad. No, you're not. You're more than that. You are an idea, an express image that you bring something to this dimension that's needful. You are important, but you're no king. Because with the idea of a king comes arrogance, self-centeredness, treachery, unforgiveness. It's important to understand that you're not here for that. You're here to serve. And if you don't want to serve, don't worry. You'll leave here. You will leave here shortly. Shortly. So, kings, klepto, insecure, neurotic, and greedy. That's not you. Don't allow people to call you that. It's an insult. It's not. It's not positive. They want you to think that you're somebody when a king is not somebody. You are somebody. You as an individual, not because of a title this imaginary title that you really, really don't house. You don't embody. You don't operate in. You don't. But if you can just be who you were meant to be and just be you, it's good enough, because that's who the Creator sent. The Creator sent you, not a king. Not a king. King David was a man after God's own heart. King David did some dirty things. He really did. His son, Solomon, had over 700 wives, 300 concubines. Or was it 400 wives and 300 concubines? Whatever. It was too many. But that's what kings do. Kings marry and do things like that for political gain, treaties and things like that. It's not about love. Who wants to be with someone that uses you for political gain? I mean, there's no loyalty there. How could there? How could there be? Really? So, I hope this was helpful to gain a better understanding of kings. You can say the same things about queens too. Divas, please. I don't even want to talk about divas, but the bottom line is what a diva is: delusional. She's got an inflated ego. She's vain and she's arrogant. That's what the each letter stands for. She's delusional. She's got an inflated ego. She's vain and she's arrogant. You're not a diva. You're not a queen. A queen is quarrelsome, uncaring, entitled, explosive, and narcissistic. That's not you. No, is it? No. You're not a queen. You're not a king. You're not a diva. You're not a boss. Right? You're none of those. You're the express image. You are of his likeness and an express image. You are his image and an express image of his likeness. Created in his image and an express image of his likeness. That's you. You don't own anything, but you have access to everything, which is very, very powerful premise. You have access to everything because of your relationship with the Creator. Kings don't have access. Their violent nature has garnered them their position. That's all. A king doesn't have access. You have connectedness to everything. Why? Because as you are connected to the Creator is connected to everything, so everything is connected to you. And lastly, correction. If anyone ever does anything to you, correction, they will experience being corrected. They will not get away with mistreating or doing wrong to you because of your relationship with the Creator. So you don't have to do things to people. You don't. Justice will be served. Justice is not the legal system. See, we go to the legal system looking for justice. The legal system is a system of that which is pronounced as being legal or law. Just because it's law doesn't mean that it's just. We know that because for hundreds of years, slavery was the law, but it was not just. But justice is universal. It's interwoven into the very fabric of this universe. You don't have to go seek justice. Justice comes. You may not see it, but you need to know and to understand justice is sewn into the fabric I don't have to go do anything to anybody. It's coming. It's coming. And I'm not saying you sit around and let people do anything to you. No, I'm not saying that. Absolutely. But don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't put yourself in the way of the legal system, putting yourself subjective to the legal system, because what that will do, it will endanger your liberty. It will endanger your life, liberty, and your pursuit of happiness. So we don't want to do those things. But know this, no one gets away with anything. I rest in that. No one gets away with anything, because justice is sown in the fabric of the universe. Anyway, I'm hoping that was positive, helpful. I enjoy doing this. I do. I enjoy doing this. And because I enjoy doing it, I'm going to continue. I'm hoping that what you would do is that you would help me by liking what I'm doing, liking my content, and sharing my content. If you would do that, that's all I ask. That's all. To press a button, to like it, and to share it. Tell him it's the guy with the fedora. You gotta, whatever. Tell him it's the guy with the braids. I don't know, the guy with the glasses. The old guy, whatever you want to call me, I don't care. The guy with the wine. The guy that doesn't cuss a lot. Anyway, thank you for being with me. And I'm hoping that you'll, it's really weird because this idea just came to me. Tomorrow is the release of the new movie Coming to America 2. And tonight we talked about Kings. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. The creator, spirit, knows how to speak to specific areas of life. So, yeah, Kings. The King of Zamunda. Wakanda. Whatever, man. The bottom line is, you're none of those things. And neither are they. Anyway, thanks for coming aboard. Thanks for spending this time with me this past hour or so. I really do appreciate it, but I need your help. I need your help. And I'm asking for your help. I appreciate it. Until our next time, peace.